People from small towns, where everybody knows everybody. What did someone do that was so embarrassing they had to move away? Our mayor lost $1.3 million to an internet scammer promising a Beyoncé Justin Timberlake concert. It was so embarrassing oh wait no, they re-elected him, my bad. I remember in the 1970s there was a girl in our town who caught all sorts of flack for getting pregnant. At 13. 13, if you can believe it. Why, that little tramp. And by her uncle, no less. That poor man, seduced by that terrible devil child, knew she was a bad seed from the moment. Yeah, you as sick to your stomach as I am yet? That's how the old lady mafia in our town characterized the incident. We never saw her again, but Uncle Pervert was a pillar of the community and was frequently seen around town for years afterwards. I hope his ultimate fate involved hammers somehow. I'm not even from a small town, but this girl in middle school told everyone she had a brain tumor and did fundraising for a surgery, but one of her best friends asked her parents about it, and they had no clue what the fact she was talking about. This was early in the school year, and she didn't last until winter break before her family pulled her out of the district because the bullying was so bad. One of my first jobs, I worked with a girl who did this exact thing, except it was her boyfriend who had the brain tumor. We were all covering her shifts, and then we found out she was lying. We still had to cover her shifts until we could hire someone else. A girl a year ahead of me was removed from the home because she was being molested by her stepfather. At night, a few local guys erected a sign saying, "Child molester lives here." Family moved to the next province. The wife stayed with him and tried to spread the story to people that her daughter had seduced her husband by walking around provocatively in her nightie, and it wasn't his fault. I just don't understand how any parent, especially a mother, could side with the abuser over her own daughter. That's just some sick shit. A lot of mothers get jealous of their daughters in these situations. My mother-in-law started very openly getting jealous of my eventual wife when she hit puberty. Thankfully, none of the men she ever brought around tried to molest her, and she left home when she thought that one of them might. My mother-in-law is a bit better now, but is still an awful person. Pissed in the biscuit dough at Hardee's. Every small town has a biscuit story, but this one is authentic. His co-workers laughed, and when his mom showed up to order breakfast, he told her what he did as if she would think it was funny. She didn't find it funny at all and literally beat his ass. It made the local paper. Destroyed the whole community. The Hardee's became an Arby's, now it's a bridal shop. The Hardee's became an Arby's is a uniquely American sentence, and one that does convey how serious this situation was. I'm laughing so hard at its final fate as a bridal shop. Spanish teacher got caught by a group of students having sex with a construction worker in the boys' locker room. Second semester she relocated to a middle school in another town. A teacher getting caught having sex with another adult? That's pretty rare. Dude in my high school class recorded himself jerking off and saying a certain girl's name over and over. Wouldn't have been a problem, I guess, if he hadn't recorded it over a VHS of RoboCop and then left that in his car when he took it in to get fixed, and if the guy fixing his car hadn't taken it home for his family to watch. Bit of a nasty surprise for all involved. 50-year-old was having sex with cows. I first thought it was a cruel rumor, then someone took pictures. He moved to Colombia within a week. I'm still horrified by the story. A 25-year-old guy got caught banging a horse in my town. Poor guy was so embarrassed he tried to leave town. Unfortunately, they caught up to him a couple miles down the road and took him back to jail. A girl tricked a boy into sending her nudes by pretending to live on the other side of the country and being interested in him. She then proceeded to share these online, and it spread like wildfire. In not even 12 hours, everybody had seen them, and that was in 2003. The guy switched schools that week, but it didn't help, and the whole family moved away a few weeks after. Don't know if the girl got in trouble, but I doubt anything meaningful was done to her. Guy got arrested for distribution of underage pornography. Local PD always publicizes these with pictures of them searching the house, as well as the general area. Sheriff's office executed a search warrant in the 700 block of Pedo Street. Part of the material he was uploading was from hidden cameras in his bathroom, so his own daughters were unknowing victims. Wife kicked him out and began pursuing divorce immediately, so while he was out on bail, he was staying in a hotel. People kept egging and vandalizing the house and leaving threats. not realizing they were actually terrorizing the victims instead of the pedo. Kid was expelled from every school in town, all 4, and we were his last chance. One day, he did a roundhouse kick to our pregnant teacher's stomach. She never came back, and neither did he. She was renting out a second home to her son, who blew it up, and after investigation it was found to be a meth lab. Since her son was living there, it didn't need to be listed as a rental, so it was just a second home, so everyone found that address blew up, caused by meth lab. Meant that she personally did all that. Even after clearing the air, a lot of people still thought she did drugs, and so much so that a lot of people would not locally hire her with her drug past. Lady never did drugs in her life. I grew up in a small town in Georgia. I had a friend in high school that came out as gay. He was essentially forced to leave town for his own safety. So many Christians were so ready to judge and harm someone for just existing. Thankfully, I left too when I graduated high school. I could never go back or let my kids grow up in a place like that. As the saying goes, there is no hate like Christian love. Oh boy, this story is wild. So, back in 2005, there was this insane case near Enumclaw, Washington. That's honestly one of the most infamous things to ever come out of my small town. Basically, a guy named Kenneth Pinion, who worked as an engineer at Boeing, got involved in some very questionable activities. Along with a truck driver named James Tate and a few other men, they filmed and shared videos where Pinion, under the alias Mr. Hands, was receiving attention from a stallion. Yeah, you read that right. The whole thing came to light when one of these encounters went horribly wrong, and Pinion ended up with fatal internal injuries. The scandal was so massive that it actually led to Washington state changing its laws. Zoophilia, which was technically legal at the time, became a Class C felony after this. As for the others involved, Tate, the truck driver, didn't face zoophilia charges since it wasn't illegal yet. Instead, he got hit with trespassing charges and received a 1-year suspended sentence. This case is so infamous that as soon as I mention the name of my hometown, it immediately comes to mind. Back in the mid-90s, a popular, and supposedly talented, football player moved to our small town during his junior year. He came in with a lot of hype, big camps, impressive background, all that stuff. But in reality, he wasn't very good. If you've lived in a small town, you know how politics work. He was still a starter. On top of that, this guy was an absolute arrogant jerk. Calling him entitled would have been a compliment. Now, here's where things get interesting. The deputy mayor in town, basically the second in command under the mayor, would often go on vacation with his wife, leaving their 2 sons home alone. The sons were actually pretty cool guys, and they'd throw huge parties. Like, the kind of parties that brought together every clique in school. Everyone loved these parties. But after one of these parties, their parents came home and noticed something weird: insanely high phone charges. Remember, this was the 90s. No cell phones, no internet, just landlines. And it turned out someone had been racking up charges calling 1-900 numbers, phone sex hotlines. Naturally, the parents weren't happy, and they blamed the 2 brothers for it, thinking they were up to no good. But the brothers swore it wasn't them and decided to figure out who the real culprit was. Fast forward to the 3rd party of the summer, and the brothers came up with a plan. They hid all the phones in the house except for one, which they left in their parents' bedroom. They had a hunch who was behind the calls, but they needed proof. Sure enough, around 1 a.m., the music suddenly cut off, and one of the brothers called everyone upstairs. Some people had already figured out something was happening and had gone up ahead of time. When the bedroom door opened, there was Johnny, his real name, by the way, the star football player, lying on the bed, pants down, going at it while on the phone, with everyone watching from the hallway. Needless to say, his reputation was destroyed. His family ended up moving away before senior year started, and no one ever saw him again. Classic small-town scandal. This is not embarrassing, but they were forced to move. Our old neighbor and my wife got into a petty argument about dog poop. To make a long story short, she tried to poison our dog with antifreeze and ended up killing the neighbor's dog on the other side. At the same time, she was cheating on her husband, and he let the police fully aware of what happened. We all packed that courthouse and made her feel horrible. The judge was furious. She moved away shortly after. Only enough the house exploded about a month later from a gas leak. No one was there. Not embarrassing. But back in the early 80s, there were these two guys in my 40,000 pop town. One owned a top restaurant, and the other the coolest bar. They both did and sold a lot of cocaine, but they were great folks and did plenty for the community. When the feds were snooping around, the local police chief gave them the heads up and suggested they move. So they packed up and headed to Florida. The restaurant guy and his family stayed there the rest of his life. The bar guy eventually moved back to town when his kid was in high school. Local weed dealer in our tiny town in the Bible Belt started selling and taking a lot of mushrooms. About a month after his debut of his new product, he took a ridiculous amount in a video on his Snapchat story in order to show how good they were. The morning after that video was released, he started posting 10 videos every minute on his Snapchat story for like 6 hours. It was all ramblings of him being God and better than the scum he was forced to live with on this earth, and how he could save us if we stopped thinking. I don't remember much about the schizo postings, but I do remember the very last video was him in one of the only 2 public access parks here with his junk out peeing on the grass right in the center of the field. After all of that was released, he ended up going to a retail store that I worked at with a handful of my school friends, and he went on a rampage, screaming and stripping himself. I walked past the tantrum at one point and saw him punching the floor over and over, and there was blood from his busted up hand all over himself and the floor under him. He ended up getting arrested, and the last time I had heard about him, he was in a psychiatric hospital receiving treatment for psilocybin-induced psychosis and mania. It was absolutely insane. Now everyone in town asks me about my shrooms friend from high school, El Mayo. Plenty of crazy stories here. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.